This is my logbook for week 8 of the side club. Again, just a quick overview of what we did in today's lesson. We did Jodie scene, which I'll talk about, and how my character develops in that. We did the We're Like Gods dance. We also happy. I wrote down here fish and sheen transition, and then I'm in the transition, but I'm actually in the next scene as well. So I'm sort of like transitioning into the scene I'm in. I'll talk about that in more depth, and how I'm a character in that, and how the focus isn't on me in Jodie's scene. So we'll start by talking about Jodie's scene and character development in that, and what I have to do, and how my posture has to be, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so yeah, Jodie's scene. She walks on, and she walks on the stage from stage left on the back, and we are all on the side, sat down with glasses on, and we are judging her. So it's called fear of judgment, the scene. So I have a very high posture. I've got my legs crossed, and I look down at her, and I'm tutting at her. So the audience, the focus is on her, but the noise is focused onto her. So people don't need to really look at us until the lights come up, and the lights go down on her when she starts speaking, but they want to see us looking at her and judging her. So I did that with my facial expressions, like I'm doing now. I raised my eyebrows down at her. I gave her a dirty look. I looked at her and then looked away, sort of thing, that kind of thing, just to really make her feel really not nice in that scene, because obviously it's fear of judgment. You want the audience to think that we are actually judging her in that scene, and then when the lights go down and she starts speaking, we freeze and stare at her, and then I'm not involved for the start of that. So yeah, so Jodie's scene is very good, and then halfway through Jodie's scene, she says that we move into and the rugby boys move into a corner, and we talk about how we mutter to each other. We're not actually talking, but we're pretending to talk on the side stage. So us as the rugby players, we got out quite cool. As also there's bits where we interact with the other corner, which is the Smally, so the unpopular people of group. So Adam's in there, Chloe's in there, Jamie's in there, and we interact with them, and we sort of show the statuses on that stage. So you got some statuses of the unpopular kids, you got us who are the popular kids, you got Stacey at the back who's really good and everyone likes her. There's a lot of popularity on that stage, and who we're talking about in there. So I don't really use any voice in that one, but sort of I've still got to play the rugby player that I am in the opening scene, that I am in Robin's scene, and also in the closing scene. I've still got to be that same rugby player, and it's sort of like a cocky, more musty look at me sort of thing. Okay, we also did, I'll talk about both dances, saves talking about them in separate. So we did We're Like Gods and We Are So Happy. So now we have changed the idea of we Are So Happy, and we are going to be doing box steps, and whilst we're doing those box steps, we're going to be doing the changing, and just not showing with the sticks with emojis on it, and changing and not showing it, keep changing back and forward. So that's really good ideas, but we wasn't going to do that before, but now we are. So I wrote down here, I found it hard because I wrote down here, found it hard because I don't know, found it hard because to go back. Yeah, so I found it hard because I've hit box step here. So I was doing the box step whilst turning it, which is fine. But I know now to set a target for next week to really improve that, and how I can develop that much more, and make that look more smooth. We're Like Gods went really well. It was our first time we did it through, and there were bits at the end what I'm forgetting. It was just remembering the routine, but once I know that routine, I should be absolutely fine with it. Yeah, we also did the fishing scene, right? So to talk about the fishing scene, so I'm in the transition for the fishing scene. So it transitions into Jodie's scene, which I just talked about at the start of this video. So the transition is they go off and then the transition is us bringing chairs on whilst our back, and then just staying still on each side of the page. There's 6 of us this side, 6 of us that side. Yeah, so the audience, the people, the first is, and then Jodie comes on. So the transition that most of us are in there, it's not really the focus needs to be on us. It's when the lights come up and then the focus comes on. We looked at timing for that one as well. We wanted to put the chairs down at the same time, the way we're going to carry in the same time, the way we put our glasses on the same. So we can talk about now in the sheet here. I didn't use a voice in any of today's. Obviously we did a singing. Sorry. I mind that. We did the singing for We're Like Gods, and we are so happy, and my voice is developing much more. It says, have you made any improvements or changes? No, I've made any improvements or changes. Have you used your voice in your class this week? Yes, and any comments on it? Yes. I'm struggling to do the We're Like Gods, because there's a bit where it goes quite high. So it's we're like that sort of. It's just hitting that, but I've talked to Tim about that, and he said once a bit of work, we can work on that. So that's one of my targets for next week, to make sure I can hit the high note for We're Like Gods. How effective have you found your class warm up? But we did a class warm up actually on the Tuesday, because we was there there for the Tuesday, and it was really helpful because we were focused on voice, because we were going to do a lot of singing that morning. So Debs knew we need to do a lot of humming, a lot of articulation exercises, a lot of tongue twisters, that kind of thing. Yeah, any research we've done this week? No. We found out that we're gonna do. We find out that obviously we need to put a point across the audience. We talked about that, and we talked to all put words together that we can think about that we want to put across to the audience. So we did a little bubble sheet, which I'll post on the logbook. It's a little time bubble with all what we need to include on the side. That was pretty good. Characterization, obviously. Talking about characterization, not necessarily for David, my actual character that I'm performing, but as a rugby player. So my character's developing a lot. I've used the techniques to explore my character, obviously. It talks about how I develop my character as a rugby player and make him more posture, a big posture, and very cocky. I think I've covered most of this in the video that I've talked about, but I can talk about the skills I use. So I applied I looked at applying research findings. Obviously, I did research of rugby players, what a typical rugby player would act like, what he would stand like, or how he'd react obviously not how he'd react to different situations, but we all react as a typical, stereotypical rugby lad, tall, posture, very buff sort of thing. What decisions have you made for the character? I've made him to make sure he is. I keep playing in my mind when I'm a rugby player, that I am very cocky and confident. I'm very high above everyone else, and I'm high in perspective in front of everyone else. So yeah, I think I've covered everything in this one, and all of this. I obviously didn't use my voice, but talking about voice in singing, pace was fine, use of tone was fine, articulation was fine. Maybe I could do it a bit more louder in the opening song, because we are quite quiet. So talk about projection more. That's a target for next week, to be more projective in that one. And yeah, definitely really good for week 8.